question probably would be best for you, Mayor Cranley. You were talking about home rule, and you've got a number of people here who are already in court right now defending themselves against some actions that were taken at the state level. Is this through this organization, will your mayors be supporting your fellow mayors in those battles?
Well, again, I don't know the specific case you're referring to, but in general, yes. Remember that, you know, it's a long-standing political philosophy that the government closest to the people is the best government. And the last time I checked, that was the stated philosophy of the conservative Republicans that were running our state. That local government is the best government, and the closest to the people, the better. And so, as a general matter, obviously we are very cognizant of the current makeup of the General Assembly and the executive offices. And that's why we're explicitly not going to take any formal positions without Republican support as an organization. Very strict bipartisan requirements. But I'm confident when I say that we all believe that local government is the best government. And I'll make this point. The city of Cincinnati, we have a 2.1% earnings tax. That produces roughly $350 million for our general fund. And we have other, of course, budget, water, sewer, et cetera, but for our police and fire, et cetera. And I can tell you, and all these mayors can tell you, with great specificity how those dollars are spent. $120 million for police, 100 for firefighters, $25 million for picking up the garbage, et cetera, et cetera. And I guarantee you, everyone in Ohio, Democrat or Republican, will say, you know, that sounds about right. You know, you need cops, you need firefighters, you need to pick up the garbage, you got to take care of your parks, your recreation, you got to clean up the streets. We send, by definitions, Ohio has roughly a 6% earnings tax. So I know for a fact that the people in my city send roughly $1 billion a year to the state of Ohio. I don't know what we're getting for that. But I know that everyone in the state of Ohio knows what I'm delivering for $350 million, for a third of the money. And so if you think about how the state economy is moving forward, the jobs are being created in cities. So what we want, what we've seen over the last 6 years is how can we hurt local government? And by the way, we see ourselves as completely in solidarity with townships and county commissioners, and all local government's been under attack. And we don't see this as we're saying cities and don't worry about the townships. No, we see that in general, local governments have been under attack over the last 6 years, and we all need to bring more voices to change the discussion to figure out what's good for Ohio. Because if you think about what the economic engines for Ohio are, the question in Columbus should be, how can we help cities? Not how can we hurt them? And so we want to change that dynamic.
What kind of a reception did you get from the legislative leaders and General DeWine, and was John Kasich not available? Is that why you ended up meeting with staff?
Yeah, he was out of, I think, the area of the day, so we met with 4 of his staff members. It was a good conversation in each one of those meetings. We spent most of the afternoon here on Tuesday. Again, with this real message of how we want to move forward. Specifically, we focused on 2 areas, the opiate addiction and investment in roads and bridges and infrastructure. We have examples across our communities about those issues. And were responded to pretty well. It was I think like the first day they were back, so it was a pretty wild day for everybody, but we had a good meetings with everyone.
Is there something, sorry, Julie, is there something specific that you want from John Kasich's budget, upcoming budget from the state? And what would be your top 3 on the wish list?
Well, the answer is there will be, but we have not formally adopted positions down. We will be doing that over the next couple of months. So I don't want to speak for the group. I mean, big picture, obviously, we all care about infrastructure, and we all care about as Chase pointed out, the drain on our police and firefighters again with the heroin epidemic. You know, in Cincinnati, we're having a great year in reducing homicides, but we saw a spike in homicides when we had this terrible explosion of carfentanil opioid in the summer. And our police and firefighters, instead of chasing gangsters and drug dealers who were having to go provide Narcan to people who were ODing. And And so we saw, because our cops couldn't do the proactive policing to reduce crime, we saw a spike in homicides that were unrelated to heroin, but was a consequence of the drain of those resources. So something along those lines, of course.
What's the breakdown of Democrats and Republicans?
20 to 10.
20 Democrats, 10.
We've seen mayors since last week's election coming out around the country talking about ways in which they're going to represent constituencies in their cities. Maybe I would phrase it as against or in the face of sort of some of Trump's suggestions on immigration, for example. Is this, I was told this wasn't at all related, it was in the works beforehand, but can any of you address whether this group is going to respond to the president at all?
Well, let me take a couple comments. We've been meeting, this is our third meeting actually, together. And actually, we've actually had more mayors at the previous meetings, just I think because of the timeline of the Thanksgiving holiday. So we've had over 20 mayors sit at these tables for 4 hours, really discussing how we're gonna position our voice in state and federal. But specifically, I think more of our discussion has been on the state level. We haven't had a discussion yet as a group about the election yet, so this is our first gathering together. To further, an example of what we've done already is, Mayor Cranley had a letter around fully funding CARA for the heroin epidemic, and we sent that out, and mayors chose to sign on that. We'll do those kind of activities, I think, pretty regularly, as mayors have a movement that they want to have support on. We'll move those through the organization. The 30 top cities, we think, are the economic drivers of the state, and are able to come together as a voice. Mayors are leaders of their cities and provide that political leadership in their communities. And so that's really why this group is, I think, really exciting for us to really talk about how cities and communities can come together and how we can work together, because it's a group of leaders in their community.
Can you explain what participation pending means, and I guess what each of these mayors are going to do to officially sign on?
So the participation for the organization is the top 6 cities had to pay a dues amount of $9,500. The 7 through 30 paid $4,500 in dues, because we recognized we wanted to make sure that people were really in on the effort. So the participation pending, I would assume, is
We haven't received
your
a
check. The bureaucracy of the city sometimes a little slow. So that's the effort, and that's the reason why. But we've been working on this for about a year now. I've attended some of them. We've had these conversations for a year. And just I can speak on my behalf for the past year, the relationships built between mayors now already across the state, and that open communication and dialogue has helped me as a mayor, and I think it's helped others just to be able to, have this work to be able to figure out how we can really move our communities forward, because the state does play such a large action in our communities.
What does this organization provide in terms of services that you couldn't get from the municipal?
So as Mayor Cranley said, and I'll let you jump in too, that we are in concert with the Municipal League. We've met with Kent Scarrett, I think, a number of times. I think the biggest difference for us is we are the political leaders of our community. The Municipal League is really large. It's from every small village to largest city, and everything from city managers to fiscal administrators. And really, when we were putting this organization together, we recognized that we think in the legislature and the governor and the political leadership wants to talk to the political leadership of their communities. And so that's really, I think, the big difference in this organization. At our meetings, you can't, we love staff, but staff doesn't sit at the table. Only mayors sit at the table. And the fact that these mayors have been willing to give, literally now the 3rd time, 4 hours at each one of these meetings to really move forward, I think is something that's very powerful, considering how difficult it is for many of these mayors to ever leave their city. I think that's quite a statement on how important this is for their communities.
And you had said that it takes a 2/3 vote to approve policy positions?
Yes, that's it.
Have you had any cases yet where you have not been able to get 2/3?
No, because we haven't taken these policy positions yet. We intend to soon, but we spent the last year just getting organized and agreeing to the ground rules.
Well, I haven't quite heard what was the impetus a year ago that caused you to move in this direction?
So I'll just be honest, Mayor Berger, where's Mayor Berger? Yeah, Mayor Berger is probably the dean of our, are you the longest serving?
Longest serving mayor in Ohio,
Mayor of
yeah.
Ohio, yeah. So,
Greatest.
the greatest mayor of Ohio, there we go.
The great beard.
The greatest beard, oh, okay. We're very into bragging too in this organization. So, Mayor Berger called about 18 months ago and said, look, we really need leadership of mayors, and really pushed a couple of us to move forward. And then I think in December, we started visiting, right? So I think in December, visited some, I think I've been to like maybe all your city halls almost, and different mayors really took on these ideas of really pushing together. Like, for example, Mayor Mulligan really organized other counties' mayors, you know, in different groups. And so I think one of the things that really made it go is it was really needed, and it was pretty obvious it was.
Why was it obvious it was needed?
Well, just because, as we've said, the past 6 years, we don't think the mayors have really been voicing their opinions on the state budget. And moving forward, I would argue that we haven't seen a governor candidate even have an urban agenda since Voinovich, who was, by the way, a mayor. So we really want in 2018 for the governor candidates of both parties to start talking about what they're going to do for cities and their plans for cities, because it's such a key economic driver for the state. So we really want to make sure that that happens, and I think that's what's important.
And I think we're worried about the future of Ohio. And, you know, we're all Ohioans, and we want Ohio to succeed. And we're seeing the job creation happening in cities, and yet an attitude in Columbus that's been very anti-local government, very anti-city, and that's not good for Ohio. And so, you know, we need to raise our voices to build a better state.
Could you talk a little bit about the structure of the organization? Are you registering as a nonprofit? Are you going to be raising money? Are you going to hire lobbyists?
So we have registered as a nonprofit. We have, like we mentioned, a 4-member board that must have a Republican on it. So the board members are myself, Mayor Cranley, and Mayor Whaley, and Mayor DeVeter. We decided that at the last meeting. We do not, I think, plan on hiring lobbyists at this time. We will likely, if you look at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, it's really formed very similar to that. And so that's kind of the structure that we're looking at.
And will you survive solely on dues?
No, we intend to raise additional dollars.
And can you give me an idea of what kind of organizations you would look to?
People that love cities. I mean, we'll, just like U.S. Conference of Mayors, we'll have, we'll have groups that, I mean, we expect to have very friendly relations with the police and fire unions, who, are obviously people that we employ at the local level. And we have common cause in making sure that we can deal with the heroin opioids. So I don't know, but I'm guessing that we'll have alliances with groups like that.
We haven't started that, so we'll let you know in a year.